Hello chess friends and welcome to your Out of Chess channel and welcome back to the Tech Mahindra Global Chess League tournament in 2024. We're now already in the round 9 of this spectacular tournament, which means that things are really heating up. Only one more round will be played tomorrow, and basically there only two teams are battling for the throne. The Alpine Pipers and the Alaskan Knights still can win this event. We'll talk about the current standings at the end of the video, but in the round 9 we had the immortal, the incredible, the spectacular match of world champions. We have the battle of goats between Magnus Carlsen and Viswanathan Anand, and that's the game that I've been waiting for. And Vishy is such a great player. When I watched his performance also in this event, Vishy is getting out of the opening really in a great way. What I think bothers Vishy in this event is this time management, because there's no increment. The games are played, of course, in 20 minutes without any increments per move, which is, I think, a tough thing for Vishy to handle. But when Vishy is playing this opening, he gets out of his opening really in a good way with the black pieces, with the white pieces. He's really familiar with theoretical ideas in any of these openings. He has such a great theoretical knowledge, but when it comes to really then afterwards the time management, then he loses some games. But so far, I would say, again, great performance by the legendary Vishy Anand. So let's see now this battle of world champions with the white pieces. Magnus Carlsen opened with the move c4. We have c5, the symmetrical English, knight to f3, knight to f6, knight to c3, 4 knight variation after knight to c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, and now after move e6, Vishy is preparing here some breakthroughs with the move d5. That's why Magnus is not allowing that. Battles, of course, immediately for the d5 square, and now Vishy battles again for the d5 square in a tactical way. Pins, of course, the knight that is controlling the d5 square. Magnus releases the pressure a little bit here in the center of the board. B takes c6, and now bishop to d3. Normal development, of course, protecting also the pawn, because there is always the strat bishop to c3, and then something like knight takes e4. We have e5 by Vishy, Carlsen, and I would say, again, a pretty equalish position here. As I mentioned already, completely equal position now for both sides. Black has, I think, good chances, because black has also the opportunity in some lines to break and enter with the move d5. So far, again, great theoretical game by both sides. We have now the move h3, bishop takes c3. Good move, I would say, by Vishy, messing up the pawn structure. Why not? And then you can go for the d5 goal. We have now the move d6. Vishy delays this d5 immediately, which is not a mistake or something. He's preparing it, of course, with bishop to e6, and then eventually this move will come. We have now the move c5. Good move also by Magnus. He's trying now to do something. He's trying now to split the pawn mobility that black is here. Black is, of course, a massive position with his pawns here, and I was really surprised when I watched now this position and I watched now the whole database. No one in chess history played this move d5. I'm not sure why this is such a bad move. Probably because of this line, e takes d5, c takes d5, and then bishop to e3. But I really like also here this position by black. You have a beautiful pawn mobility. You will get the bishop into the game. Maybe there is a problem about this pawn, and okay, maybe no one wants to play this position with the black pieces, but it's also pretty equalish now for both sides. So here, after move c5, Vishy took d takes c5, which is now the standard line. I see also 3 games in the database, especially in this position. So after d takes c5, now Magnus plays a novelty, f4. That's the way how you play the game with the bishop pair. You don't want to have such a static position. You don't want to have, of course, any blocked positions here. Magnus opens the center immediately, and now c4. Great move also by Vishy, which forces now a reaction here by Magnus Carlsen. Magnus retreats, keeps now the bishop connected to the pawn e4, and now comes, I think, the first move that I really didn't like by Vishy. Here he could have, I think, played more aggressively, but he chose to play a more solid line with queen to d1, and then after trades of queens, the game is, of course, pretty simplified. Nothing complicated can play, and that's exactly what you want to get with the black pieces. You want to have a simple game without complications. But I think here Vishy had a beautiful chance with queen to a5. Instead of trading off the queens, connecting the queen to the e5 square, if something like f takes e5 happens, still the queen can take, and also you're attacking the weak pawn on c3. And I think now White will have already many tactical and positional problems. Again, I would say pretty equal position, but this was maybe Vichy's idea to get in the game more actively, to maybe even take control of the game. Queen to a5, I really love this move. But okay, unfortunately here, queen to d1, rook to d1, nothing wrong again in this position. Again, a pretty equal position. But here, after bishop to f4, you see now there is one problem in black's position. Black cannot compete on the b file. The only open files are, of course, the b file and the d file. And with the move bishop to f4, Magnus secured himself already that he could take over on the b file. That's, I think, now the issue for black. Black will never be able to play something like rook to b8. And here, after bishop to e6, I would say slightly better now, finally, position for white here, for Magnus Carlsen. Rook from a to b1, and we see now these problems that black cannot compete on this open file. We have now the move h6, a4, a5, and now rook to b7. Magnus occupies immediately the 7th rank. That's, of course, how you play with your rooks. Knight to h5, bishop to e3, g5, and now after king to f2, Vichy plays now a very interesting line, knight to f4. He basically invites now Magnus Carlsen to give up the bishop pair. Of course, then after g takes f4, there will be a weakness. But even in any of these lines, I think black can survive this position. Black, I think, release the pressure really in the game. There are not so many complications that could happen. Even in this scenario, black should be pretty solid and has, I think, drawish chances for sure. After knight to f4, Magnus says, okay, let's try it out. Bishop to f4, g takes f4, king to f3, and now rook to d8. Now Vichy is competing again here against this rook on the d file. Eventually can also, of course, compete maybe here on the b file. We have now rook to b1. Magnus retreats with the rook. Rook takes d1, rook takes d1, and now rook to b8. Now finally you see occupied himself also a very important file. And now the issue for Magnus is now that he cannot get the rook again on the 7th rank because the bishop on e6 is covering that. Of course, Magnus has now the opportunity to pick up the pawn on f4, but I would say good compensation, good ideas here by Vichy to give up a pawn just in order to activate finally his rooks. And now his rook is breeding, of course, on the b file. And here Vichy played now the beautiful rook to b2 and is attacking the bishop. Forces now reaction by Magnus. Magnus has to now to play passively with his rooks, with his bishop. The bishop is blocked by its own pawn, and Vichy is, of course, going now with the king towards the center. And I would say really equal position. If nothing goes wrong for white and for black, this should be a completely drawish position. And look at the time right now. Okay, maybe Vichy is now having some time issues, but I think he had enough time here, or 6 minutes on the clock. Not such a complicated game. Vichy was always great in blitz games. He was always good in faster time formats. King to f8, perfectly fine. Now I see Vichy is going towards the center. Magnus is also going towards the center, but now Magnus has this opportunity to advance the pawn to e5, and Vichy has to now retreat to e7. And now comes, I think, the critical really moment of the game. So far, it was equalish with maybe tiny little more spaces for Magnus Carlsen, but now Magnus announces that he could try maybe here an attack on the king side. g4, great move by Magnus Carlsen, because what Magnus is trying now to do is to play in some lines maybe the move h4. So far it's not possible because of the bishop's activity, but what he's trying to do is maybe h4, h5, and then g5, and then this pawn is rolling on the h file. And also what he's trying to do is maybe g5 and then g6, and then to get the bishop into the game. So there is now a great flexibility for white here to do at least something. Again, pretty equal position. If black plays the game correctly, nothing should go wrong here also for Vichy. But okay, here after move g4, Vichy continued with bishop to d5, h4, we have king to f8, and now after king to c5, now Vichy makes a huge mistake. Here he has to play again towards the center of the board with king to e7. You have to control now the d6 square. You should not allow white to get on the square. Now after something like h5, you can play f6 and you can get the king into the game, and you can control everything on this side of the board. The bishop is well placed, protects now both of the pawns. So I would say, again, a pretty equal position now for both sides. But Vichy played, instead of king to e7, he played king to g7, allowed here Magnus Carlsen to activate his king. Now the king is on a perfect square on d6, and now there is a new goal that white can make. Probably Vichy was annoyed by the possibility of this idea that we have talked about, h5 and then g5, and then the pawn is rolling on the h5. But now there is a different problem. Now there is a problem of g5, g6. You maybe even can sacrifice the pawn, but then after f takes g6, this pawn is rolling. That's now the huge tactical goal of this beautiful rook and bishop endgame. Now Magnus Carlsen is saying, at least I have something, at least I can battle this out, at least I can complicate finally things here in the center of the board. After king to d6, rook to a2, Vichy is now trying to do something. Even if you try something like bishop to f3, I want you to show now this idea, g5, then after h takes g5, h takes g5, bishop to g2, now you play g6, and for instance, black takes, this pawn is rolling finally on the e file. Very complicated position here for black. So after king to d6, rook to a2 by Vichy, Magnus plays again on the same idea, h takes g5, h takes g5, and now in order to stay in the game, maybe rook to b2 with ideas to get the rook maybe back into the game to try to defend his position. But then again, look at this, g6, f takes g6, again this idea with e6, pawn is rolling, very complicated now position to defend for black. After h takes g5, Vichy made another not correct move, I would say, rook to a3. Now the rook is really out of game, and Magnus plays now here bishop to f5, is now having a much better position. Although here even bishop to b1 immediately is a good move. Then after something like rook takes a4, you can again go for this goal, and black would be finally forced to give up the bishop for a pawn. I would say here completely winning position for white. But after bishop to f5 that Magnus played, again Vichy took, again Magnus plays on this idea. Now Magnus has even this one, rook to g1. First of all, he attacks now, rook takes g6. The position is collapsing here for Vichy. The engine says that it's even a checkmate, forced checkmate in 22 moves here in this position. Here's Vichy tries to escape, Magnus goes forward with the king, rook to b3, rook to g6 check. Magnus locks out now here the bishop is out of game. You can maybe sacrifice it, but again it would be game over. So here Vichy is trying to battle, Magnus gets the king closer, delivers a check, now bishop to h7, and here after this move bishop to f7. In this position Vichy Anand resign. What can happen, of course, after king to f8, you have even this beautiful checkmate with e7, but Vichy here in this move resign. So what to say? Again, incredible opening theory by Vichy. In one moment, I think he could have even been more active, but then he messed up the endgame, was annoyed by this possibility probably that the h pawn could roll, and then finally the e pawn was rolling. So it's simply a normal day at the office here by Magnus Carlsen. He's playing always this this beautiful endgame with such a precision. Great game by Magnus Carlsen, and he won now the game of Titans, the game of World Champions, very the game of GOAT. So let's see now the current standings of this event. Here we have this situation. The Alaskan Knights are in the lead, and the Alpine Pipers, where Magnus Carlsen is playing now, are second place. What Magnus has to hope for is that the Alaskan Knights tomorrow, that they lose, and then the Alpine Pipers by Magnus Carlsen, that they win their next match, then maybe they could be on the first place. But so far the team of Anish Giri and Nodebek Abdusatorov, they're in the lead. They played so far the best chess and are the deserved leaders of this amazing chess tournament. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Always beauty to watch the Clash of the Titans. If you want to see some other games that we have analyzed from this event, check out our coverage. Here are some games that we have analyzed before, and if you like this content, hit the subscribe button. See you soon with some more videos, and what do we say in the end? Chess is the best, of course.